What's up guys, and welcome back to another episode of Inspired By. My name's Will and I'm making an assortment of music under the moniker Hush Child. Now today I wanted to show you just what makes up a romantic, almost nostalgic sounding lo-fi track. And I've taken some inspiration from Cloudchord and Oatmello, who are often seen collaborating on lo-fi projects and have just recently released an EP together. As always, the audio project for this tutorial can be found over at my Patreon, which is linked in the description. And if these are the types of tutorials that you'd like to see more often, make sure to like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments below. As always, this video is sponsored by DistroKid, but I'll have a few more words on how they help me release my music a little bit later on. For now, let me show you around this project. Yeah, this past week, I've been listening to loads of Cloudchord and Oatmello's collaborations. So I figured why not show you guys how to make something that was, slightly nostalgic, romantic sounding, but also use some of the structuring and arrangement elements that Cloudchord and Oatmello also use. So today we're mostly focusing on this section of music here, but as you can see, I've kind of done some basic structuring elements, which I'll go over with you as well. Let's not waste any more time. Let's jump straight into it. Now there's a song that these two producers have made called Cardinal, and that's kind of the first place that I wanted to take my inspiration from. I wanted a guitar sample that was similar to that. So I hit up my friend Rebecca to see if she could record me a quick bit of acoustic guitar. Super lovely, right? Now you may be thinking that sounds romantic already, and what makes up romantic chords? How do I make it sound like that? Basically what we have, we're in the key of C major and we have this C major chord here. Be the same as playing a C major triad up here, but instead of having that G above, we're just slipping it underneath. G, C, E. So we're starting here, and that gives us the feeling that everything is safe and the world is full of wonder. Now to give that feeling of romance or nostalgia, you want to have that feeling of uncertainty. And that's where we go to the B flat, which is just here. That's super nice, right? So we've come from here, the C, we go down to the B flat, and we can do a B flat add 9 as well, which sounds really nice, which is this little cluster of notes. The B flat, the C, and the D. I like that dissonance, but we haven't added it today. And now where do we need to go? We need to reassure the listener that actually, we are in love and everything's probably gonna be okay. Just a basic F triad, F, A, and the C there, and then we just go up a whole step as well. And then things are going to get resolved. We're going to keep our thumb on that G and then move our index and ring fingers up to the C and the E. So we're back to our first phrase again. I'll put the notes on the piano roll so you can see them being played alongside our guitar as well. That's why the chords sound so romantic and almost Disney-esque. That chord progression there on that guitar sample, all I've done is added the EQ8, which just rolls off some of those lower muddy frequencies. And I'm adding the RC20 to just give that guitar some wobble as if it was sampled off of vinyl or tape. But to emphasize the playfulness, the romanticism found in this track, I've added the plastic marimba. And I've just added the transient master, the EQ8, to make sure it's just only playing those higher frequencies. A little bit of chorus ensemble for some movement, and RC20 for the same reasons that I had it on the guitar. So this plastic marimba is actually doing some call and response with the guitar. So the guitar is setting up a theme and the marimba is replying to it. The plastic marimba kind of holds your hand as we move out of the last of the 8 bars there. But that can't be the only thing that I have in my music, otherwise it'd sound super thin. So I've added the flute, which is something you hear in that same track that I mentioned with Cloudchord and Oatmello. So we've got our main flute sound, which is just playing these notes here. And the way that I've created this is just editing this woodwind preset that I got from Splice, just adding a little bit more of a harsh attack and a longer release. I'm adding the Haas effect to give your track some stereo width, and then the compressor, which is sitting with our kick drum, so that there's no harsh transients there. But on top of that, I have a flute harmony layer, which is just adding some higher frequencies and is sitting more central than the flute above it. So with that main flute. So that's just beefing up the texture of the flute and allowing it to be heard on small speakers a little bit better. Later on, I wanted to help out that flute layer, so I just added a pad, which again just plays some of the notes of the chords I showed you earlier. And this is just one of the standard Serum presets that comes with the plugin, and you can see that I'm automating the low pass filter here. So it's again not too harsh. We've got some ebb and flow. Everything is about, you know, cause and effect, call and response. So this is one of the rare tracks where I still hadn't thrown in the drums. Drums was the last thing that I did in this session, and that's mainly because they're so simple, but they are coming up. The next thing that I added was the bass, and I actually took this from a Soul Surplus sample on Splice, and it originally sounded like this. And it was a little bit out of tune as well. So what I did was add a tuner and just manually, as you can see, 4 semitones there. This one is +2 and 21 cents. This one is -3, -8 cents. So I just made sure that it was in tune with my guitar. So you've got to bear that in mind. If you're mixing samples with a real recorded instrument, make sure that they're sitting in tune with each other, because the person recording for you, they may have just tuned to themselves. It might not be universally in tune with your samples. I cut that up and took the notes that I liked. It's got some room sound there, which I really like as well, because that's going to help cut it through the mix. At the minute, it sounds a little bit weird because there's so much brightness there, but once you have all the instruments, you can't even hear it. Okay, so we're getting there. Now we've got the drums. My drum layer has changed. I've taken inspiration, as always, from the artists that I mentioned, but I've changed my snare sound a little bit. In Cloudchord and Oatmello's track, Cardinal, the snare is almost like a bright UK garage snare. So that would have originally sounded like this. If you go away and listen to their track, you'll hear a snare that's super similar. But what I did was just roll off the EQ a little bit and then select this warp, beats and forward transient marking and bring that down to 10. So it's essentially just a transient. Very quick, sharp beat. And then underneath, I've taken my friend Dokado's Sounds sampled snare and I've thrown that underneath, because that's got a lot of character. It sounds very wet. It's a lovely little sample. On top of that, we just have the Mali kick from Splice, EQ'd a little bit, RC20, because I noticed in Cloudchord's track, we had some distortion, some bit crushing there in the middle frequencies, and a limiter. And then a really basic hi-hat, and I've just chopped up 2 elements that I liked. So originally, there was this hi-hat sample that sounded like this. I just took 2 transients that I really liked Again, there's that kind of tension and release. We've got a short, sharp transient, and then we've got more of a breathy transient, and that all plays with our kick and snare. On the last bar, we don't end it with the snare, but another kick. Finally, something that I noticed was in Oatmello and Cloudchord's track is this kind of bubble laser sound. So I found this Leslie patch, which was really nice. Again, it's just in the operator. It's called Bell's Leslie, and I've just increased the attack a little bit with the auto pan. We're not adjusting the rate, but you could obviously adjust the rate later on. And all I'm doing is freezing, flattening, and then pitching that to 2 notes. So we have this note here, and then this note here. And that's panned hard right and hard left. So that adds a nice downbeat rather than a cymbal or something like that. There's no crashes in here. So we have that, and that's just super subtle. And to add to that subtlety on the drop, we have this 6/8 pattern, which is being played by the arpeggiator set to 12th notes. Again, I'm just using operator and the noisy bells preset with some phase, some shaper box to give it a duct effect as if you would have it side chaining. So it's a bit of a weird pattern. And I've got the RC20 for some wobble, set to my kick, and an auto filter so it eases in and out. And the reason that I added that auto filter at the end there is I wanted these Leslie bells to be heard. So I'm going to play those together. And here's a little bit of that automation. So just easing in and out like you would with maybe some string modulation. So everything coming together on the drop here sounds like this. So I said that I did some structuring based on Cloudchord as well. So what I've got in the intro is just a few of our layers. The flute element and the pads here are just made a little bit quieter than they are in the drop. And my romantic guitar has the cassette emulator by Waves Factory turned on as well. And that gives it this sound. A little bit brighter, but you can probably hear the resemblance of this and Cardinal. And that's just turned off as we go into the drop. I've also added some chimes to again accentuate that there's a crescendo happening and we're about to go into the main instance of our track. As we go into the next section of the song, I've just taken some samples from Splice and pitched them as a little bit of a guitar solo. I don't think I love these guitar sample elements. They've come from different samples on Splice, not from the same producer. So it took a while to pitch them, and I think they're still a little bit pitchy, but I couldn't replicate some of the stuff that we hear in Cloudchord and Oatmello's music without having a couple of guitar layers. I think if I was to release this song, I'm gonna have to get Rebecca to do a little solo in over that section there. But all in all, that's how I created this track. And you know by now, once you've created a track like this, there's really only one other thing you need to do, and that's to release your music. And who better to do that with than our sponsor today, DistroKid. Shout out to my friend Rebecca Mardle for sending me such a lovely guitar sample to work with today. We often collaborate and release tracks together, but you guys, let me know, should we finish this one up and release it for streaming? Whilst you're down there, be sure to fill me in on what you'd like to see in next week's episode. As I mentioned, this video is sponsored by DistroKid, and they make it completely stress-free to get my music on all of the streaming platforms, from Spotify through Apple Music to Instagram and TikTok. I released some new music with DistroKid just last week, and I can assure you it was super stress-free, and my music was ready and up on Spotify within just a few days. They also took care of promo cards and hyperfollow tools for me, so all I had to do was copy and paste it into my Instagram bio. If you'd like to start releasing your music with DistroKid, make sure you use the link in the description below, as you'll get 7% off your first year. So there we have it, guys. That's how I go about creating a romantic, nostalgic sounding lo-fi track, obviously taking some inspiration from Cloudchord and Oatmello. I definitely took some liberties. How did you guys enjoy the track? For now, guys, I thank you so much for sticking around, and I'll see you next time.